Welcome back to I'm going to pin it as a victory episode, victory celebration. It hurts. Bears lost again in rough fashion, 31-30 to the Detroit Lions, but draft pick got better and Justin Fields looked pretty damn good one week and another week. FedEx Ground Player of the Week. And despite all of what they're lacking on the offensive side of the football, the last month or so, the Chicago Bears have been a top 3 scoring offense in the NFL. That is not a sentence I thought I would be uttering right now at any point, probably for a few years, if ever, as a Chicago Bear fan.
And you know what? I texted you after the game. I said I'm genuinely annoyed by this loss, and I know the draft pick got better, but I think losing to Detroit at home to me unacceptable, completely unacceptable, especially considering we were very much in control of that football game throughout the second half, the early part of the second half. So that was a bad loss. But let's talk about why we're really here, and that is Justin Fields. And we saw the game, we saw the performance. Everybody has seen what he's capable of doing, what everybody could see what he's capable of with his arm and his legs. And that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this Justin Fields is a quarterback notion. Now, Ben, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. They're going to lead into another.
Okay.
So, question number 1. There was a quarterback, a very, very recent, that did not come into the league that wasn't a polished passer, but he was very deadly with his legs. Can you name that quarterback for me?
I mean, there's a few I can name. I mean,
think elite.
Think elite quarterbacks with their legs. Josh Allen.
Oh, bingo, you got it. Now, let me ask you another question. Has anybody in that era of Josh Allen running with the football, has anybody referred to Josh Allen as a running back?
No, sir, they have not.
Okay, so that's my issue. And it's an issue that just goes way above the racial lines of what a black quarterback can do. And then and of course, you know, it seems to be a trend where if a quarterback runs, he's automatically a running back. But it seems to me that fandom is very subjective when it comes to just the general fandom. If you score points through the ground game, that's not sexy enough for people. People want to see games that the quarterback has 350 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, or maybe 1 interception because he just aired the damn thing out the entire game. But at the end of the day, we had to realize something. Justin Fields is working with a below average offensive line. He has receivers that are okay. They're not good. They're just okay. And he's doing everything by himself. And I don't know if a lot of football fans know this, because I know people started watching football 2018 and think they're connoisseurs of it, but the name of the game is to score more points than the other team. And if you want to look at it from a strictly offensive perspective, the Bears have outscored everybody. It's just the defense can't get off the damn field if we're really watching the games. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say too, I mean, end of the day, if you look at the rushing numbers for the Bears compared to every other team, just team by team basis, it's not even close statistically. Like with anyone, the Bears compared to anyone, Bears have the most attempts, the most yards, highest yards per carry, most yards per game. I mean, they've also lost the most amount of fumbles, but had the most amount of fumbles. I shouldn't say lost the most amount of fumbles, but they're averaging almost 6 yards per carry. And I know a lot of that comes from the big chunk runs from Fields and Herbert this year, who's been phenomenal. Because, I mean, I don't know about you, but David Montgomery has just been very, very, very uninspiring to watch this year. It's just, I saw someone say on Twitter, and this is as good of a summation as I've seen of David Montgomery in his current state, is that if there was a role in the NFL where you needed a guy on a third down specialist from less than 5 yards, David Montgomery's your guy.
Right.
There's not many people better than David Montgomery.
Right.
And if he could not pass block better than Khalil Herbert, I really don't think we would have been seeing much of David Montgomery this year, to be completely honest. But
Definitely.
the Bears are afforded this opportunity where they don't need David Montgomery or Khalil Herbert. They have not needed to play out of their minds because of the threat that Justin Fields has become with his legs.
Absolutely.
And that's a good thing. It doesn't matter. And this whole notion too that Justin Fields is not that he's not a quarterback, he's a running back. It drives me insane. I'm going to tell you a couple of stats that these, highest air yards per attempt, right? Where would you guess Justin Fields is at in the NFL right now?
I
Out
would guess
out of
he
out of 32 quarterbacks, where's he at?
I would guess he's within the top 5. I'm going to say he's 4.
All right, number 2, second highest air yards per attempt, Justin Fields, right? A running back doesn't do that. And then if you look at it, guess who has the highest air yards per completion? That's Justin Fields. That's Justin Fields out of every quarterback in the NFL. He's doing that with a dog shit pass protection offensive line. And up until the last couple of weeks, Cole Kmet's been non-existent. He's been absolute dog water. And Chase Claypool coming into town. Apparently, it's made Cole Kmet remember how to play football. And Darnell Mooney, I mean, hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. The Notre Dame best friends, this was blowing my mind. Cole Kmet has the second most receiving touchdowns of any tight end in the NFL this year.
And
Only
think about how slow of a start he got off to. That's amazing.
I mean, just the offensive revival. I mean, I'm not even gonna call it a revival because there's no offense here to begin with. It's what I mean. It's just it's a flower. It's blooming. It's finally blooming, and all these pieces that we've kept hearing about potential. It's finally becoming that beautiful flower that everyone has hoped we would have, and it's genuinely fun to watch the Bears right now.
I want to touch on 2 points, and this was brought up to me on Twitter that if you watch Justin Fields at Ohio State, one thing that was very, very clear about him, he can pass. His arm was amazing. His arm was amazing. He just learned how to be a runner of the football. Think about that. He was not drafted in the position that he was because he was an amazing runner of the football. Because let's be honest, if that was the case, he probably would have fell to the later parts of the first round, like Lamar Jackson did. But he didn't do that. He was an amazing passer of the football. So that's number 1. Number 2, I have really been. I would like to go back to those people who was saying that the Bears are going to flirt with a winless season because they have no weapons on offense. They are one of the worst offensive teams that they've ever seen constructed and whatnot. And while on paper, that could still very well be the case. Even subtract Chase Claypool, he still has to get acclimated with the playbook. And I don't think people understand that, hey, you have to get acclimated with the playbook. Like, hello. But the fact that this singular quarterback, who people said was in the worst situation, is outplaying everybody that is in better situations. He is better than Zach Wilson. He is better than Mac Jones. And Viking fans, I know y'all are riding high, but he's better than your boy Kellen Mond. He is better.
He's not even on the Vikings anymore.
He's not even on a roster right now. So there you go. He's better than Davis Mills. He's better than Trevor Lawrence. So think about that. A guy who does not have that great of weapons or that good of protection is right now unequivocally the best quarterback in that draft class. And everyone will still say they're still the Bears. They'll still find a way to fuck this up. I'm sorry, with a quarterback that is like this and an offensive coordinator that finally gets his quarterback, is anyone going to sit and tell me that I shouldn't be excited about what this next offseason is going to bring because it's just the Bears and they're going to fuck it up? No. I genuinely believe that they have a quarterback they believe in. And by the way, for guys that are big in the media and think that he's still auditioning for his job when he has put up monstrous numbers better than most guys in this league, stop lying to yourselves. Because Justin Fields is going to be a superstar. And I've never been so sure about a quarterback. I have seen it all. We've seen it all. The Rex Grossmans, Kyle Ortons, Jay Cutler's, Jason Campbell's, Josh McCown's. We've seen it all. But this is the guy I'm most sure of. And he's giving me no reason to not think that. Listen, I'm saying this because the storyline fits. He's going to Atlanta this week. Atlanta is one of the teams that passed on him. They passed on him before a tight end that they barely even put in the game plan. He might go the hell off this weekend. I'm telling you now. And it's going to be beautiful.
It's just so. I mean, we've been talking so much about this offense and how much fun it's been. I didn't want to be at this point, and I know the talent's not there, but this Allen Williams-led defense of the Chicago Bears, it's been really, really, really bad. And I know it's very young, and there is talent. There is talent there. Undoubtedly, there is talent on the defensive side of the football. There's still a lot of holes and gaps to fill. But if you're Eberflus, if you're Poles this offseason, the defense just continues to get worse and worse. Are you taking a look at potentially bringing in a new defensive coordinator? Are you letting Allen Williams ride it out next year with these additions that they're probably going to, not probably, they are going to make in the offseason?
So it's tough because Allen Williams runs the same exact scheme that Matt Eberflus has always ran, even with the Colts. Yeah. It's always been about, let's not give up a big play, let's play in zone, and let's just hope that the pass rush gets home. But when you are 32nd in every category in pass rush win rate, then you can't really rely on guys getting to the backfield and getting a sack. You have to rely on undrafted free agent Jack Sanborn to get that sack. That's a problem. Everybody else is not doing anything. So first and foremost, before I answer your question, when you have a defense like that the defensive line is simply not getting home to a quarterback, you got to switch it up, get aggressive, blitz, or play more men, because at the end of the day, playing in zone is just going to give up so many yards. And that's exactly what they've done the past 3 weeks now. You can't just sit back in zone expecting that this pass rush is going to do anything. They haven't done it. They've proven that they can't do it. So you have to switch it up. But to answer your question, with how bad the personnel is on the defensive line, it would low-key be unfair to get rid of Allen Williams.
No, I agree, and I was hoping that was the answer you would give me, and I assumed it was, because unlike most Bears fans, you tend to be incredibly rational. So,
right,
there's just, you can see the flashes from these guys on the defensive side of the ball. You can see them, but it's just, there's absolutely no consistency there. And there's one guy in particular who I want to call out for lack of consistency this year, which is not who I anticipated calling out for a lack of consistency.
Yep, I know what you're gonna say.
And that's Jaylon Johnson, man. It hasn't been good, and the regression has been really incredibly real. And I don't know X's and O's enough to really dive into it, but just me playing armchair quarterback, watching the games, he doesn't look the same.
I'm gonna say two things. Number one, I think he is not as healthy as people think he is. I genuinely do not think he's healthy. And it was an oblique injury that he came into the game kind of like trying to fight off, but you could tell how slow he was, because the catch that Kennedy made in the fourth quarter, there's no reason why Kennedy should be beating you on a slant route. Yeah. So I think he has lingering injuries. But number two, and this is scary to say because the Bears brass might see this, and it's going to be a very scary reality. He may not be a scheme fit in his defense.
Yeah, honestly,
he may not.
which is surprising too, because in the past he's been a pretty decent zone corner.
Right.
And I mean that schematically you would think it would be a fit, but it just I'm not sure, man.
Yeah.
And it's just a weird spot too, because I know that on Sunday he lined up in the slot a few times, which really not something we've ever seen him do, and I don't know if they're just trying, and he didn't do it a ton. I mean, it was probably less than 10 times. I remember noticing it. And
Right.
it happened enough to where I noticed it. I don't know if that's them trying to get him in a spot where he could be more successful, but the Bears don't have the personnel to not have Jaylon Johnson lined up on the outside.
Absolutely.
That's also part of the problem where they can't be taking these. I mean, I don't want to call it a chance, but you can't be trying to make these scheme fits in the middle of the game when it's Jaylon Johnson and whoever the fuck else they have playing corner right now. I mean,
Right.
it's a smorgasbord of like just nobodies.
Yeah.
And I know like I don't want to be entirely negative because I mean the secondary it's probably had other than Justin Fields the brightest spot on the entire roster this year in Jaquan Brisker.
Mhm.
And although I will say he's become very, very vocal on Twitter the last few weeks. And I just
I've
really
not seen it.
so I don't know if it's just like what I've seen, but he's been very vocal about the fact that he's been disrespected as a rookie. He's not being mentioned with the likes of a lot of these great rookie defenders. And I agree, he should be in that conversation.
Hmm.
But I'm really hoping that it just doesn't blow up in his face because I would just hate for him to get old takes exposed. And I don't think it's gonna happen because if I remember correctly, I think he's second in all rookies with sacks and he's playing safety. I mean,
Yeah.
he's been doing it on all levels. He's been doing it on all levels, flying all over the field, and he really is exactly who they thought. It's so far exactly who we thought we were getting out of Penn State.
And also, I believe he's everything we thought Eddie Jackson was going to be. That's a good thing. He
Oh,
might be,
it is.
and you know what? That's an incredible thing because it's not like Eddie Jackson's a bad player. He's definitely not a bad player. He's been much better this year than he has been the previous 2 years. But I think it's good when you do have building blocks at some positions.
Mhm.
And honestly, we may have more building blocks in the form of Nicholas Morrow, who's playing his more natural position. And Jack Sanborn had double-digit tackles last week and got robbed of an interception because the referees had a money line parlay on the Detroit Lions. So it was good to see certain guys get going. But I think to me, I've already accepted that defensively, this team is really, really bad.
Mhm.
But if there's one guy that I want to see take some steps, because there was a time in the season where he was all the way back down at the totem pole, worked his way a little bit back up, and went right back down the totem pole. Kyler Gordy has been rough this year. He's been rough,
Yeah.
and like there's no other way around it. But if he were to build confidence in some way, somehow, because you would have thought after getting his first interception against New
Mhm.
England, it's like, okay, this is where it's going to take off. This is where he is going to, make shit happen now. It hasn't happened. And
Mhm.
he's been horrible the past 2 weeks. And you just hope that he is a building block because Kendall Vildor is not your prototypical second cornerback, and you have Jaylon Jones out there too, and you just signed Justin Lane off of waivers. It's just Jaylon Johnson out there, and truthfully, when you are the top corner on the team,
You're
it's like, damn, I know I have no help out there, and it's like all the energy of bad plays go to radiate towards me. And
yep.
that sucks because I'm going to be the one who looks like, oh, I'm regressing. I may not be as good as people think I am, but
No, it's
it's
true.
really,
Eh,
what was
eh,
that?
I was saying, and it's true, and it like especially playing in this division with I mean, there's a lot of damn good receivers in this division, and it just like
Yes.
you're gonna get exposed more often than not playing against what Minnesota has going on. I'm on Ross St. Brown. I mean, it's and who knows what's going on with Green Bay now after Christian Watson finally showed some life. But that's a whole different topic. But quarterback is not a position that I wanted to necessarily spend big money on if I, as a Bear fan, going into this
Right.
next offseason. And I don't necessarily think they have to spend big money, but you can't trot out the level of inexperience that they have right now again next year. It can't happen.
It can.
And
100% it can.
that's all it comes down to. Like I mean, this is gonna sound like absolutely ridiculous, but I'm just looking at some of these free agents next year. I mean, all right, we'll never get him, never mind. But like, however old Patrick Peterson's gonna be, bring him in for a year or two. Bring in Patrick Peterson. I mean, this is gonna sound even worse. Eli Apple, he'll be dirt cheap. I know he's bad. I know he's bad, but or why not bring back Kyle Fuller? Like, if you'd be willing to come back, why not bring back Kyle Fuller?
I said that prior to this season. There was no harm in doing that whatsoever. In my opinion, he should still be a Bear.
I'm looking at his contract. I did not realize how cheap his contract was this year.
He played for Baltimore because I know he's injured right now, right?
Yeah.
Right.
1.1 million this year.
Oh, jeez.
I'm pissed. I didn't realize he signed for that little.
Yeah.
Well, that annoys me, but we'll see. It's just, again, we're talking about the offseason, but I'm okay that we're at that point that we're not. I'm just happy we're at this point right now. Where are we going into? Week 11, I believe.
Yes.
We're in week 11, and we are no longer worried about the Bears potentially going quarterback moving forward. I don't think
Thank God.
And I don't think any of us were ever true between the two of us. I don't think we were ever at that point. We talk about it. Yes, we had talked about it, but deep down, I don't think either of us actually ever believed that. But the fact that it's not even a thought in our mind right now, it puts me at ease heading into the offseason. And
Absolutely.
I don't necessarily love Colin Cowherd, but I saw a quote from him saying along the lines of, for the first time in what feels like forever, the Chicago Bears have the correct GM, the correct head coach, correct offensive coordinator, correct offensive scheme, and correct quarterback moving into the future. And it feels good seeing that this regime is getting that national media attention, because I feel like the more and more the national media talks about this team, the more and more the premier free agents are going to want to come here. The more and more Poles is going to spend that money. And the draft capital, I mean, if they keep losing and that draft pick keeps getting higher, actually gets the higher and higher that pick gets, the more likely it is they trade that back and just get more draft capital, which that's what I want to happen.
Right.
So it's an exciting time, man.
But I also I'm gonna make a comparison that might scare some people, but it's still worth noting because of the situation that we're looking at. Last week, I made a point that Justin Fields is going to probably be the reason why free agents want to come to the Bears, because teams don't want to face Justin Fields. So I'm thinking about back in, I believe it was 2011 or 2012.
I knew you were going to say it. I knew you were going to say
yes.
it. I knew
it. Dream Team Eagles, the crushed, the broken dream team Eagles. Now, granted, they were not good on paper. They were very, very overhyped going into this season, and rightly so.
Mm-hmm.
But you saw the guys that wanted to come to that team. They had Michael Vick, who was a little bit over the hill, but I think you could argue he was hitting his prime with Philadelphia. And people said, I don't want to play Philadelphia. Michael Vick is on that team.
Mm-hmm.
So they joined them. And all the hype went to them. Everybody wanted to come to them. Granted, that team failed. And a lot of it was because Michael Vick got hurt. He wasn't the same player after the fact.
And then, hey, man, Kevin Cobb
came in, and even Vince Young was the starting quarterback at one point.
Yeah.
But in this case, Justin Fields is young. He is going to get better, which is extremely scary. And that has to be a selling point for a team that is in a pretty big market.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they have a young quarterback that everybody's going to be afraid of. And you can say the same thing about Josh Allen. When Josh Allen became that guy, people wanted to come to Buffalo. So it's all a revolving door. We just hope that the revolving door includes us this time, because if I don't think there's an excuse.
I'm with you.
I genuinely think that there is no possible way that there's guys who do not want to come to Chicago. I really don't think that. So the balls really imposes court to really make those moves. I genuinely believe that if he wants to spend money, he's going to get a lot of guys. He's going to draft great, because this draft class, it's been good. I'm not going to say great because they missed on Jaylon Jones, but can he bounce back from that? Absolutely.
So real quick before we move on, I've seen this floated around, and I'm sure this comparison is just coming from the fact that both him and Cordero Patterson went to Tennessee, both kick returner, punt returners type of guys. But with Khalil Herbert hitting the IR for 4 weeks, people have been saying, hey, why not try Jaylon Jones at running back? I mean, they said, why not? Curtis Samuel can do it. I mean, they've seen what Cordell Patterson's become. I don't agree with that, because people are already saying Khalil Herbert doesn't play as much as he should because his pass protection is so bad. What makes you think Velus Jones's pass protection is going to be any better?
The only thing I can argue about him lining up in the backfield is if you have him running routes out the backfield. If you want to do like some jet sweep runs with him, sure, let's do that. If you want to take him outside the tackle, sure, let's do that. But if you are in passing situations and he is going to be next to Fields pass blocking, I think that is a massive mistake. So I think for now, we just need to hope that Treston Ebner is a pretty damn good pass blocker, because he's going to get a heavy workload. And you know what? I'm not upset about that, because I'm actually curious if his performance going forward is going to push David Montgomery out the door, since he may be, from a skill standpoint, that he may be a better fit in this offense more than David Montgomery.
Yeah, I mean, these next 4 weeks are really going to be make or break for Montgomery, especially not even just as a Bear, just as getting paid in general, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I want to see him get paid. He's been pretty damn good here his entirety of his career, but we'll see. It's going to be an interesting few weeks coming up, obviously, with the Falcons on the road. Fields it's going to be a little bit of a homecoming game for him down in Georgia. He's going to want to show out, I'm sure.
Yeah, he was a Georgia Bulldog. Yeah, he didn't play for another school. He was a Georgia Bulldog.
And then the next week, Jets, and then followed up by the Packers. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, honestly. And yes. But we shall see. We shall see. Regardless, overall, a productive week for the Bears. So moving into the rest of the league, wanted to kind of start with what people are calling, some are calling, I should say, the game of the year, the overtime win for the Vikings, 33-30 over the Buffalo Bills. And this Vikings team just continues to find ways to eke out wins, man.
And I was one of those people that said that the Vikings are imposters. They're going to prove to be imposters this week. And I thought, when they were down by 2 scores to Josh Allen, that wasn't 100%, but you really couldn't tell. But I thought they were done, and they just continue to scratch and claw. You know who was at the head of that? Kirk Cousins. I can't believe I'm saying that, because listen, I know Justin Jefferson was amazing. I think he solidified his number 1 position as the best receiver in football on Sunday. Unless he's 1A, 1B with Tyreek Hill, but he really, really did damage on Sunday. But someone had to throw him the ball, and that was Kirk Cousins. He made all the plays. But I'm going to focus on Buffalo, because I think people are a little bit iffy about them now, because they lost the game, and Josh Allen has thrown the most picks in the past 2 weeks and whatnot. But I'm not concerned about them, and here's the reason why. I know their run defense is bad. Like it's really bad. But it's a known trend with the better teams. They can't stop the run. Philadelphia, we saw them get thrashed, in the run game on Monday. So that's an issue for just the better teams in football. But Josh Allen, all he needs is a slight tweak in his game. I was watching Dan Orlovsky break down the last play where he got picked up by Patrick Peterson. That little twitch basically said, I don't know if I should throw this, but I want to win this game. And the problem I believe Josh Allen has at this moment in time, it was the same issue that Patrick Mahomes had to get over. And you see a difference in his game this year, and which is why he's probably the lead candidate for MVP at this moment. Josh Allen cannot be playing hero ball. And honestly, it's a really easy thing to not play hero ball, but I think it shows a very deeper issue with Buffalo in the fact that they don't have a running game to where Josh Allen doesn't feel the need. He has to be the hero every single time. And the fact of the matter is, I think Buffalo still is the favorite to the AFC. I still have them coming out the AFC, especially if Josh Allen is healthy. But
I mean,
in this
that's a big
situation,
if too. I mean,
yeah, it's a big if because we saw him just sling the ball over the field on Sunday. But who knows if that's even sustainable? They're gonna be playing in 2 feet, 3 feet of snow on
yeah,
Sunday. So only God knows if he takes a hit, that thing's not gonna tense up again. So
yeah.
we got to see. But if Josh Allen could tweak just a little bit of the game of he does not need to be the hero every single time and think he can make every single throw, the Bills are going to be dangerous again. And we're not going to have this conversation again because they're going to be right back on track. I think Josh Allen's going to be fine. I think he's still an excellent quarterback. It's just toning down when he feels the need to make the big plays. Get what you can, and then you get the big plays because with that arm of his, he can make big plays.
Yeah, and he can make them effortlessly too.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, and I do think that's an interesting point that you bring up though, where you're saying he kind of feels like he has to play hero ball, whether it's running the ball or just throwing every deep ball, kind of like how Aaron Rodgers plays and just trying to throw the ball. Fuck it, I'll throw it as far as I can and hope someone catches it at times.
Right.
And a lot of the times it pays off for him, but it's considering where he's playing in Buffalo, the weather that turns around this time of the year, I'd say around week 8, usually it starts to turn. Your body's not going to like getting hit in the cold like that long term.
Yeah.
I understand he's a fucking specimen. He's what, 6'5", 6'6", 250 pounds, and he runs like a 4.7 or whatever. I mean, he's a freak. Like he is a legitimately real life video game character come to life that you make in your NCAA road to glory so you can be a 5-star. And I mean, it's just like that's legitimately how he's built. If they don't go out and get him a legitimate running back, though, they have failed him. They have failed because Devin Singletary experiment's just not working. I mean, I think it's in what, year 4 at this point, year 3 or 4, and he's just not good, man. Like he's not. And I know they like went out, they traded for Nyheim Hines. That was just such
really getting him involved.
No, I know. And like that could have been a solid move if you utilized him. I mean, I know we said earlier Claypool's not used to the offense yet for the Bears. And I'm sure that's similar, but it's just been a revolving door of bad running backs in Buffalo. I mean, this is gonna sound crazy to say. Probably since Chris Ivory left there.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I mean, which is crazy to say, but like, think about it.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that.
You're not wrong. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, man.
Making sure Chris Ivory was actually on the Buffalo Bills because I remember. Yes, he was. Okay, I was making sure because I was like, I think he was on the Bills for a little bit. I want to make sure I wasn't mixing up names here. It was 2018. It was his last year in the league, and he was on the Bills in 2018.
Right.
Couldn't tell you. I mean, it was probably Singletary took over after that. Honestly.
Yeah.
And they're going to be fine. They will be fine as long as that elbow holds up because Stephon Diggs he's a top 5 receiver in football.
He's unbelievable.
I mean, it's just he was amazing in Minnesota. And that has ended up being as much of a win-win trade as I think you're ever going to see in sports.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, like legitimately, it never works out that way. And yet you have 2 guys who are the premier level of their position. And Allen loves him. Gabriel Davis is starting to come to life again. Dawson Knox is finally showing some life for Buffalo. They're going to be fine. They're
Yeah.
going. If they don't win their division, which we've talked about on here, I think there's a strong possibility they won't win their division now with how good Miami's playing. They'll be fine. They'll be the number 1 wild card, and they'll make a run. Like, it's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see how it shakes up for Buffalo. I hope Allen's elbow does not get seriously injured. I mean, you don't want to see that he's one of the faces of the league. I mean, ultimately, can you, like, off the top of your head, do you know anyone who does not like Josh Allen or enjoy watching him play? Because, I mean, he's as fun as it gets across the league right now, in my opinion.
I think there are people who are fans of other quarterbacks, and by default, they will dislike him because they see him as a threat.
Valid. And there's a few other quarterbacks off the top of my head I can think of. But wanted to move on to our next game, and that was we had to talk about this one. The Raiders lost yet another game. I mean, they are just pitiful. The Las Vegas Raiders are pitiful. They lost 25-20 to the Indianapolis Colts in Jeff Fisher's first ever game as
Saturday.
Jeff Fisher, I can't believe Jeff Saturday. We talked about this last week. I mean, everything was lined up after Jeff Saturday was on ESPN and said that the Raiders suck. I mean, a couple weeks prior, he tweeted it, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Everything lined up for the Raiders to just come out and curb stomp them, and they should have. But the dysfunction we are seeing in Vegas right now, I mean, it's bad, man. Like, I'm just thankful as a Bear fan. Bears are losing, that's fine. But there's no bright spots in these Raider games, man.
It has been a very consistent thing where the Raiders defense has stunk for years. And a lot of the blame goes on Derek Carr. And I think Derek Carr is an above average quarterback. I happen to like, when he plays quarterback a lot, but it's also too that he may not be the needle mover of this football team. And that's unfortunate because, you're not going to get much better than Derek Carr, if we're really being honest. Mm-hmm. But it is, I actually said in the beginning of the year, and I'm actually very embarrassed by this, saying that the Raiders are going to be much better because I think Josh McDaniels has matured as a head coach. Josh McDaniels is another one of the many coaches that should be arrested for thievery, for stealing the money that he's getting from the Raiders, but it's also on the Raiders for paying him so much money. Yeah. And truth be told, I don't think he was the hottest head coaching candidate in last year's cycle.
I just think people looked at what happened with Mac Jones as a rookie and thought, right, you know what? I mean, if he can do it with Mac Jones, I mean, it should be working with the Raiders right now. They have the skill there. I mean, they finally just remember that you can throw Devontae Adams the football 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, I don't know. I genuinely, I'm at a loss for words. And I know that this has been going around on Twitter today, Wednesday, when we're recording this, that apparently the Raiders would have fired Josh McDaniels already, but they are so cash poor that they can't afford to fire him and pay someone else to become the head coach in the offseason. How is that happening with an NFL franchise? How? I don't understand it. And I'll be honest. I don't know what the parking situation's like at this Vegas stadium at Allegiant. I don't know what it's like, but I have a feeling if you were to up the price $10 more, $15 more for a couple of weeks, and they told you that these proceeds are going to go to firing Josh McDaniels, I bet the fans would be okay. I mean, it's a GoFundMe. It's a GoFundMe, essentially.
Yeah, and it's crazy too that, because I'm gonna be honest, I think they're not fully telling the truth. I genuinely think they're going to find a way. They're going to find a way to get him out of his contract. I genuinely believe that. But what if they don't? What if they're being put in a position where they have to pick between McDaniels and Derek Carr? Who do you choose? Do you put Josh McDaniels in charge to develop a quarterback? Because for where we stand right now in forecasting the season for the Raiders, this is a team that can end up getting a top 3 pick.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get a top 3 pick, do they go Will Anderson or do they go CJ Stroud or Bryce Young
It's gonna be Bryce
or
Young.
Will Levis?
Right.
If they draft Will Levis,
Will
fire
Levis,
everybody.
oh my, that would be such a Raiders move.
And you know what? Let's just hope.
My God.
Let's just hope
Hal
that
Davis would be smiling from the fucking dirt if he found out they drafted Will Levis over CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Oh my God.
let's just hope.
That thought didn't even cross my mind.
Let's just hope that we finish ahead of the Raiders in the draft in the draft order, because they will absolutely be the fools to trade up and get a quarterback that's not named Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. I guarantee it. I'm hoping. I'm praying.
Yeah, man. And I really don't think Derek Carr will be there next year. And I just, it's unfortunate because they made the move to go out and get, his guy. They went out and got Devontae Adams to rekindle that flame they had at Fresno State. And you've seen the last couple of weeks how good they can be together. Finally throwing him the football, making him the focal point of the offense. Derek Carr is going to go somewhere else, and he is going to be very good and appreciated by whatever fan base he ends up playing for. And I don't know who it can be off the top of my head. There are some teams in mind. Aaron Rodgers decides to retire, I could see him in Green Bay. I thought Seattle, but I think you still have to give Geno Smith a chance again after how good he's been this year. Go down to Houston, replace Davis Mills, but I feel like Houston's high on Mills.
New Orleans.
The Colts, New Orleans. Now these teams are starting to come to mind. New Orleans makes a ton of sense, actually.
Yeah. And heck, if this team wants to, because there's 2 teams in the South. There's actually 3 teams in the South, NFC South, that can use him. Because as a matter of fact, wait a minute, hold on now. Or 4, yeah. It can be a 4.
Yeah, it can.
But yeah, I do think the sweepstakes would be very, very big for Carr, only because I know the Raiders know they can get something for him. Mm-hmm. So there will be a quarterback hungry team that's going to want Derek Carr, and they might get him.
Yeah, and I think too with him, because I don't think, what is he? I think he's 31 or 32 along those lines. He's got a lot of miles left on that arm. And I don't think, off the top of my head, I don't think his contract's outrageous by any stretch of the imagination.
Not now, at least.
Yeah, market value now. At the time it was, yes, but like market value, no. All right, so I just pulled it up. His current contract, he has, okay, so 2024 and 2025 are going to be rough.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's making he is making $17.4 million this year, and then next year it'll jump up to 33, and then 42, and then 41.
Oh, Jesus!
But there's a potential out in 2023 with a $25 million buyout.
Yeah, they can't do that. Raiders are the tough position because they can't do either.
No,
they will pick. Don't get me wrong, they will pick between the 2, but man, that's going to be rough. Like, that rebuild is going to be rough, and you just think
it's going to be like reminiscent of like mid 2000 Darius Hayward Bay, Jamarcus Russell Raiders.
It might be, but Darius Hayward Bay is going to be transformed to Calvin Johnson if I'm referring to Devontae Adams. So, it sucks for him. He signed the extension, thinking that I'm playing with my buddy again. We're going to probably be contenders in the AFC West, and it has not been that. It has not been that at all.
And I mean, shout out to the Colts too. I mean, everyone Saturday seems like a good guy. He
Yes,
genuinely everything I've seen, he seems like a good guy. I don't want to see like him necessarily fail. I just thought it was such a odd hire. And I think that's like
very.
what we have all decided. I think everyone thinks that. I'm sure Jeff Saturday thinks it's an odd hire, if we're being completely honest.
Of course.
But in 1 week, they apparently taught Jonathan Taylor how to run the football again. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I would not doubt if the Colts ended up making the playoffs.
In the AFC,
In the AFC South, especially.
in the well, yeah, because I think that's the Titans division to lose, and if they lose
Oh,
against Green Bay, then but um we don't know. The Chargers are the strangest team in football because you think every year they're going to take that next step, but then you remember they have the worst coach in football next to Josh McDaniels. So that's one thing.
yeah.
The AFC East may produce three teams. I don't think Patriots going to be one of them. And then you have the North that right now the Ravens are the only team you can see making the playoffs. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to think at least one of those teams in there, maybe not the Steelers, but maybe between the Browns and the Broncos, and the Browns and Broncos, the Browns and the Bengals are going to make a run. But if the Colts just play, if they get on a hot streak, they'll get in as the third one for sure.
Yeah. Which is just bonkers to think
Which
about.
would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's very, very much a possibility.
So I just got sent this by someone, the 2023 PFF It's Just Football, which is I believe it's so it's Mike Renner, and I don't know if you follow what's his name? Trey what's his name? I'm pulling. Trevor Sikkema, whatever his name is.
I don't follow, but his tweets pop up on
Yeah,
my
so he's
timeline.
actually he's a solid follow. So they did on their show, they had their first mock draft come out based on the top 10, and they have a lot more faith in the Raiders than we do, apparently, because they have the Raiders taking CJ Stroud, number 2,
Interesting.
with Will Levis going 3 to the Panthers.
Oh, so whoa.
Bryce Young,
Number one,
Bryce Young. They have Bryce
is
Young.
Bryce Young at number one.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, man. If that's the case, which I don't think, because if Will Levis goes third, someone got to get fired.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say 4 or 5, we're winning regardless, because I understand get weapons for the fields. I get it. I totally get it. But you either looking at Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. I'm cool with that. I'm good with that. And if you want to trade back, well, if you don't know those guys on the board, you trade back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Trade back because
currently the Bears are at number 6, and I still wouldn't hate if they stayed pat there. They have him. I mean, obviously it's a mock draft; it doesn't mean shit. They haven't taken Peter Skoronski. I should be able to say that. I'm fucking Polish, but the tackle from Northwestern. But
good player, good player.
I mean, yeah, he's good. I would not be upset with that at all. But man, Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, that would
instantly fill a need in. And just if the football gods love me, Will Anderson will be a Chicago Bear. Like that's what I really want. At the end of the day,
I want Will Anderson too, man. He is
so
so good. But we'll see how that dumpster fire just turns out in Las Vegas. But one other thing I kind of want to touch on before we wrap up here, it's another quarterback who seemingly just all he does is win, and for my money has the best gimmick in football right now. Taylor Heineke and the Washington Commanders. Taylor Heineke, if you're not aware, I'm sure you're aware, Brandon, but for those of you listening, if you're unaware, Taylor Heineke, for every team he beats as a starting quarterback, he buys a pair of Jordans in the colorway of that team. And apparently,
petty, I love it.
Oh, and apparently he writes the game inside of the tongue, is what I've heard. He writes the week, the year, and the score. He writes that inside the tongue. And like, he just seems like such a prick in the best way possible.
Oh, 1000%.
Because, I mean, the dude went from the XFL to practice squad with Washington, but enough injuries led him into the starting job with Washington. And he realistically, the guys still want him as their quarterback. And Ron Rivera announced, even with Carson Wentz being back next week, Taylor Heineke is starting at quarterback on Sunday for the Commanders. And he's not good. He's not good, like, at all. He is a worse Ryan Fitzpatrick, is how I would describe him. And it's not a bad place to be, man, because he, with just as many memorable moments he's had, will be that guy in the next 10 years in the NFL. Kind of like Jacoby Brissett's going to be. I mean, obviously Jacoby Brissett's better than Taylor Heineke, but they're in that same vein where they've had enough memorable games and moments where if you need a backup quarterback and you just got to sign someone off the street and they're sitting at home, they'll come in and make a spot start for you for the next decade. They'll be serviceable. And I just don't know how you move on from Heineke again this year if you're Washington. I genuinely don't.
You can't. And I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now because none of Taylor Heineke's success makes any type of sense. But I guess that's what makes it cool.
Yeah, no, for sure.
He is the funniest quarterback in the league. And why I say that is because his numbers look ugly most of the time. Completion percentage, sometimes it looks ugly. Mechanically, it looked like he throws off his back foot at least 50% of the time.
Yeah.
But will he get you a completion? Yes. Will he bomb one out and give you an opportunity to catch the ball? Yes. He is by far one of the strangest yet funniest quarterbacks in the league. But you know what? Those guys love him. And it's funny that I'm pretty sure the love was always there for him. It was before Carson Wentz, but it just sounds funny when another team has tuned out Carson Wentz because he may not be, well, first of all, he's not that good anymore, but he may not be the leader that everyone wants him to be. But
it's that more than anything.
Yeah, but let's just say, because the possibilities for Washington right now to make the playoffs is very legit. It's extremely legit.
They're 500.
They're 500. The NFC stinks right now, and this is barring a run from Green Bay and Tampa Bay, which seems low-key inevitable at this point. But at this moment, if he leads you to the playoffs, then how in God's name could you not name him the starting quarterback? Because if we're really being honest, going into the season, he probably should have been the quarterback. Sam Howell was the right pick, but it should have came under the circumstances that Carson Wentz was going to be brought in so they can compete. Because if they value-wise, it was always going to be Carson Wentz to be the starter. Now, Taylor Heineke seems like he's grabbed that starting job by the throat. And if he leads the team to the playoffs, then you can absolutely not take that starting spot away from him.
And I wouldn't even be mad if I was a Washington fan if Taylor Heineke is my quarterback moving into the future, because it's just one of those weird things where you have to go with what works. And sports don't make sense sometimes, man. They genuinely don't, because we were on this show earlier this year talking about how Ron Rivera's probably past his prime. He shouldn't be coaching anymore, as a head coach at least. And clearly Ron Rivera's a good football coach. We've known that. He's been a good football coach for a long time. But there just seemed like there was something off. And oddly enough, as soon as Taylor Heineke came back into the fold, onto the field, this team has life again. Ron Rivera has life again, man. And it makes no sense. And I'm going to continue watching and just smiling and laughing at it because
it don't make no damn sense.
That's exactly it, man. That's exactly because there's just been, they literally gave the Eagles their first loss of the season, and it was a closer game. Yeah, and it was a closer game than the box score indicates. Obviously, that last touchdown as time expired obviously made that look worse than it was. But let's not discount them. They went on the road and gave it to who has been the best team in football. Jalen Hurts looked human. He looked relatively pedestrian.
Yeah.
They couldn't get anything going on the ground. What's his name? AJ Brown was non-existent.
Hmm.
And there's also, I also want to say, other side of the ball. We're talking Washington. Terry McLaurin might be the most underrated player in football.
Yeah.
All of football, man.
Yeah.
Like he had 8 catches, 11 targets for 128 yards. I mean, if anyone's able to do that, it's always been said. Imagine if Terry McLaurin gets a quarterback. Well, guess what? He plays this well with Taylor Heineke every single.
That's right.
So
That's
I mean,
right.
who knows, man? I mean, who knows? And especially too with just the black cloud that's just been over Washington for so long because of Dan Snyder and all the news of the lawsuits coming in.
Hmm.
Maybe you needed some fucking goofball like Heineke to come in and just make you forget about that and realize, remember, you're getting paid to play a game. And it's just the mood has to be lightened.
Yeah, and once, and not only that, just them being exciting to watch. I don't know if you've seen their little fight song that's been circulating on Twitter, but that is so damn cool. It makes me want to be what makes me want to root for the Commanders.
Yeah.
It's so damn cool.
Oh yeah. And I know we made fun of it last week with Kirk Cousins, where they had him dancing on the plane with all their jewelry on. But I feel like they would have been doing that with Heineke regardless if that had happened.
Definitely.
I mean, Taylor Heineke was sitting in the plane wearing everyone's chains, drinking Busch Light with the fucking homemade cooler made out of a garbage can that looked like it came out of a hotel. I mean, any NFL quarterback who's sitting there drinking Busch Light just is going to make me laugh because that man can be drinking whatever the hell he wants. And he opted for the $13 case of beer that I was drinking in college.
Hey, man. As long as I ain't my quarterback is in the weight room the next day. We ain't the same.
Hey, me too. I mean, I'll take Justin Fields' Instagram stories of him working out the night of a game 100 times out of 10 over that. But as a football fan, I'm going to keep continuing to love Taylor Heineke, and I hope they make the playoffs. I genuinely do.
I do too.
Because there's been a lot of great stories on that team this year. I mean, between Heineke, I mean, Brian Robinson coming back after being shot. What was it? He got shot 4 times and he only missed 5 weeks.
I believe so.
I mean, there's a lot of great stories. Chase Young is coming back now. I'd be excited if I was a Commander fan. And I don't think, just like us, I don't think any of them thought they had any reason to be excited this year.
Not a damn. Because you went to the season with Carson Wentz as a quarterback. You wasn't going to feel that way.
Oh, God, I'm just happy for the foreseeable future, as we wrap up here, we'll never have to deal with Carson Wentz as quarterback of the Chicago Bears because there was,
or even the rumors.
Yep, because there was a point in time where that was rumored. Do you remember that?
Oh my goodness! And you know what? There were players that threatened my fandom of the Bears. He would have threatened it more than anybody because he would have stunk it up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's about as much as there is to say about that situation. But with that being said, we're gonna wrap up this week. Once again, we will be back next week. Probably be dropping the episode a day early if I had to guess, just based on Thanksgiving holiday. But yeah, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the show, and we will see you next time.